It took one person to say, I think you're just doing it the wrong way. I don't think you can DIY an entire house. How did you get over that fear of buying a house like out the gate that needed work? I think like one of the first things we did was a tile project. We just brought in a contractor. They're so expensive, or the timeline's long, or the cost is a lot. It's so much less money to do it yourself. Just buying the tile or buying the materials. Worst case scenario, we need to rip it out and start again.
You've been in business for quite some time now in real estate. What is some advice that you would give yourself based off what you know now?
I think you kind of just have to be fearless. If there's something you're interested in, don't be scared to jump in.
All right. Welcome to another episode of the Agent to Investor podcast, where we talk about the agent side of real estate investing. We'll be talking about the successes, the failures, and all in between. My name is Nico Garcia, local real estate agent and investor based out of Montgomery County, Maryland. And as always, I'm joined by my co-host,
Anna Bilek, Northern Virginia realtor and mostly out-of-state investor.
And today we have another special guest, one half of the DIY duo. We have Miss Kelli Jagman. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
We are very excited to, talk about your journey and what you got going on right now. But before we do that, do you mind giving a quick introduction of, you and your background and then what eventually got you into real estate?
Yeah. Gosh, where do I start? Well, I've always loved DIY. I grew up watching HGTV. Actually, fun fact for you guys, you'll appreciate this. I worked at a real estate office from age 15 to 18, all through high school.
Oh.
So I was like, I belong on this podcast. I kind of know a little bit about real estate. I started just as like a Saturday receptionist, and people just were coming in, getting ready for their open houses, and we're like, oh no, I don't have marketing. And this was back when you had to design marketing and Microsoft Publisher and print it out and come up with everything yourself. And so then I started poking around with designing some marketing, got into graphic design, marketing, houses. I loved it all. Funny enough, when I turned 18 and was heading off to college, I said to my manager at that point, I said, I'm kind of thinking, should I just not go to college and just become a full-time realtor and just stick with this? He's like, no, you got to go to college. You got to have that experience. It'll be great. Full circle, here I am back in real estate investing. So I'm like, man, what if? But my husband reminds me, if we didn't go to college, we wouldn't have met. And then it wouldn't have all, there's some things along the way that needed to happen. So we bought a townhouse out of college, and just being cheap, we decided to start DIY and everything. We'd get a quote and go, nope, we're not spending that. I'll buy a tool. I'll hop on YouTube University and we'll do it ourselves. And little by little, we started doing projects ourselves, and we had one townhouse, one house. We're in our third house right now that we've done so many projects we love. And I'm proud to say it was kind of like our first introduction into real estate investing. We bought the lowest on the street. We sold the highest on the street just from doing renovations ourselves and doing projects. And then a few years ago, we did buy a house. This has been 5 years here. We bought a house. It was straight out of the 90s. Nothing had been done. Brass, oak, glass, original 90s tile everywhere. And we're like, we'll do it in time. And, as time and money allows. And just basically to slow my own roll of wanting to do projects all the time and improve our own house, I said, you know what? I'm thinking back into real estate, what I kind of learned in high school and what I've seen on HGTV. How can I take my drive and take the expense of doing all these projects and put it into something money-making instead of just spending it all on our own house, improving it? So I started thinking about real estate investing, started listening to podcasts, reading books, and just jumped right in. I wasn't gonna sit and research too long, and we've accumulated a few things by now, but that's kind of how it started, was let's slow myself down of wanting to do all these projects at our own house and do them somewhere else where it can, be more of an investment than just for fun.
So are you both handy? Because I feel like as an agent, a lot of like first-time home buyers or newer home buyers, they are afraid of buying like a fixer-upper or the lowest property in like lowest cost property in the neighborhood because they just don't have that skill set, or they're just, it's scary to them. How did you like get over that fear of buying a house like out the gate that needed work?
So thankfully, the first townhouse wasn't terrible. It was just a matter of, it was just dated. And we wanted to refresh it. So I think like one of the first things we did was a tile project. And literally we just brought in a contractor. They're so expensive, or the timeline's long, or the cost is a lot. And we were cheap. We were right out of college. My dad is really handy. We have a lot of friends with tools. My dad's on a race car team. Him and his guy friends have all the tools you could ever imagine. So they're like, you can borrow whatever, we'll show you. That combined with some YouTube research at YouTube, maybe it was just Googling back then. It was so long ago. But we said, if we can borrow the tool or just buy a tool, it's still cheaper than, hiring a contractor. And I think I remember our first project was like doing a bathroom tile floor. And it was like, just keep it simple, just a straight pattern, like it was like a 4x5 bathroom. We can do this. And just, every single one took so long. And now my husband's just cranking through tile work. But it is a joint effort. It's a little harder now. We have 2 little kids. So it's more like you watch the kids while I do this, or while they're at school, I can paint, I can, help demo stuff. But he's come a long way with his talents. Now he's laying herringbone tile and doing all these different tips and tricks. And so it's been a long journey, and he's accumulated all the tools to do that. So we have him, we might as well put him to work.
Did either of you guys have like a construction background? I know you mentioned you had family members with tools and things like that, but did you know anything before kind of doing these projects on your own, or did you kind of learn as you went?
Learn as you go. I feel like it's the best way to go. My dad had a bunch of tools. My husband just likes figuring things out. So I feel like they just got to put their heads together and just really like the challenge of figuring it out. And to me, it's like, what's the worst that could happen? It goes wrong. It's so much less money to do it yourself. We're just buying the tile, we're buying the materials. Worst case scenario, we need to rip it out and start again. Or worst case scenario, let's try it. And if we need to bring someone in to fix it, that's fine. Knock on wood, hasn't happened yet. But I don't know, you just kind of like baby step in and just get more and more complex with your projects as time goes on. I love it because for my husband, it was, we're going to save so much money. And then it's like, well, because we're saving money, we're going to do more because now we can just keep going. So that may have backfired a little bit, but it is nice to be able to do it yourself and get it done cost effectively.
Now, the cool thing about doing it the way you guys are doing it is, down the road, when you decide you want to delegate, you can understand what is good work, what isn't good work, what is being overpriced. As you mentioned, contractors are really hit or miss. So if you're finding one and it's very expensive, you can, kind of shop it around or things like that. So that's one way. Is there actually any projects that you don't want to touch? I know Anna mentioned that Brian doesn't really like doing like the drywall and things like that. Is there anything that you guys won't touch and kind of delegate?
So we have come a long way in the last few houses that we have renovated. So we did 2 in 2024. And the first one, it needed tons of drywall repair. They had a pet raccoon that just tore apart walls, and there was tons of drywall repair. They also they made everything handicap accessible, but themselves, so wheelchair accessible. So they just opened walls, tore open drywall. I now hate drywall. I agree with Brian. It is the hardest thing. And if you're not doing it every day, to get a smooth wall is taking sanding and more mud and sanding and more mud. And you watch these pros come in and they're like one coat and done and they're gone. So that's a new thing. We will never do like major drywall ever again. Just hire someone. Even just the sanding, then you're cleaning up more dust. It's a nightmare. So I am anti-drywall going forward. So that house we did was about 1,200 square feet. We cranked it out. I was there during the day. My husband was there at night, and all weekend we had friends come help. We hired out driveway, really not too much over at that house. But the second house we took on was double the size with a full basement. It was about 2,200 square feet. Not as much drywall repair, but tons of wallpaper to remove. And that is also a nightmare project.
Oh, yeah.
Do not recommend. I don't know if I could ever do it again. It was horrible. I learned a few things along the way, but it was like 6 rooms of wallpaper, and that is also a nightmare. Any kind of wall repair, clearly I'm against now because it's just so hard to get it smooth. But we did start hiring out more and more as that project went on because the house was just big. The first house we did, you're not going up and down stairs. It was on a slab, 1 story, 1,200 square feet. Then you go to 2,200 square feet, 2 levels, plus a full basement. And we just got tired a lot quicker. It takes a lot out of you. So we were about halfway through and I was like, husband, we need to hire some of this out. There's just no way. And just timeline wise, it's like, I know you can do it, but your body can only do so much. You're going to go slower. You're going to get floppier. Let's just hire a few things out. So we have a really good source for getting our own luxury vinyl plank flooring. We were happy with that. We brought someone in to install it. and we're very happy with them. The price was so reasonable. They brought in a crew. They knocked it out in a day. My husband was watching. I love, though, he watches and learns different tips and tricks. So if we have to do a small room, it's no big deal. But to watch them do the entire first floor in a day, he was learning tips and tricks. And just his back is not going to hurt for a week. And it's not going to take him 2 weeks to do this. It was a huge savings. We also brought in landscaping. That's something that he has a few clients who do landscaping. And so thankfully, it's kind of, win-win. Like, we'll hire you. You're helping us out. You'll do a much better job than we can do it, but not to the level that they were able to do it and how fast to bring in a team and knock it out. So we kind of baby stepped our way into hiring some things out, and we will definitely be doing that more in the future.
Yeah. Brian says that about drywall. Just if you do the cost per hour, like of him, like going to his day job or doing something else, he makes more money by hiring someone that can do the drywall in like 2 coats and he's done versus him spending weeks and days and like the just amount of time. It just doesn't make sense cost per dollar for him. So I applaud you for not being stuck in that. Like, I can do it myself, even if it takes 3 times as long.
Which some people kind of learn. You're like, yeah, we did. And then it was like, never again.
Yeah.
Never again.
Yeah. No, you guys are living Brian's dream. He wishes that we lived close enough. So first, I want to go back and I just want to not touch on it too long. But the fact that you just dropped, like, my dad's on a race car team. Like, I love that you just kind of like dropped that little nugget there and then kept going. I was like, race car team. But that's a story for another day. What market, and I might have missed it, so I apologize. I'm going to go back a little bit. What market are you guys in? And when you made the decision to not just update your own property, but go into do a fix and flip, like, how did you decide that was the tactic you were going to use? And how did you find that like first property? Because I assume you're in a market, like we're in a market where it's stupid. We'd have to spend over $500,000 just to buy a fixer upper. So that's why I'm curious, where are you and how did you find the first one?
Yeah, so we're in the Chicago suburbs. We're pretty far north in Illinois. We could be in Wisconsin in about 15 minutes. So the far north Chicago suburbs. I say Chicago, people think I'm in the city. I'm nowhere near the city. It takes an hour and a half to get there, but far north and very suburban. Because we're handy and have the tools and the know-how and like doing all this, we figured we would save a boatload by staying close to home, at least for now. So we have definitely stayed close to home. So we're in a good town. There's a few towns around that are even more desirable. Their high schools are like 10 out of 10. And so we really kind of wanted to start there, just knowing there'd always be a pool of candidates for tenants. We didn't want to worry about vacancy or, oh gosh, no one wants to live here. No one needs to live here. So it's just, a very densely populated area with good high schools. So we did get our first 2 properties we got were turnkey, ready to go. So those are no fun. We'll just breeze through those. Then our first, it was a BRRRR. So that was last spring. It was a foreclosure. So it got listed on the market. I saw it pop up on the MLS and thought, holy cow, that is underpriced, especially for that town. We need to go see this right away. What I appreciated was it was a Fannie Mae home path property. They don't allow offers to even start for 3 days. So it's not like you have to like drop everything, get over there, it's like, okay, we can breathe for a moment, reach out to our realtor, get over there, tour it. By the time we got there, I mean, it was underpriced. There were like 15 other realtor cards on the counter that had already been there,
right,
within the first 24 hours. And we just saw it. It was a very sad house. And I just love houses. I said, you know what? This house has so much potential. It just needs to be fixed up. I'm sad for what's happened to it. And I also feel like the size is so manageable for us. For a first real project, doing the whole house at one time. This isn't our own house doing bits and pieces as we please. We need to knock it all out at once. It was only 1,200 square feet and a nice, cute neighborhood, desirable school district. We're like, let's try it. We knew it was underpriced. We knew it would go up. So we offered $30,000 over asking price. We ended up truly, I think it was just, we were not even the highest offer. I think it was just our agent was so good at following up and staying in touch and like, hey, these are investors. It's going to get done. Kind of putting that assurance in them. They chose to go with us. During the inspection, some other things came out. We actually got it for $10,000. We negotiated $10,000 off of that. So we ended up closing for $20,000 over asking price. But that was in like the low 200s. So definitely a different market than you were talking about for a fixer. But for that area, I mean, in that town, it's about 20 minutes away from us. Their average home price is over $400,000. So it's kind of like the smaller homes in a good neighborhood. So it's kind of like those starter home sizes. So we knew we could infuse some value into it right away.
Yeah. Man, we need to move when the kids graduate from high school.
Hey, if you're comfortable investing long distance, though, I mean, I get why people do it because the price points are just so different. But for us, it's like, oh, we'll save so much if we can do it ourselves. So
yeah, but even contractors are just so hard to find. And when you're
So
not
hard.
there, I'll be full and open kimono. Like, I mean, it's really hard to keep an eye on them. Like, we drove down a couple times to check out the projects that, like, if you're not there, like, on a regular basis or have someone there constantly, like, shit just falls off the rails. Things go longer. People show up or don't show up. We have no idea because we're not there. And Brian just loves to do this kind of work. He's like, oh, I so want to do this, but like, we just aren't close enough for him to be able to do it. So that's why I said that. It's more like he would love to do it just because he loves to do that kind of work, like fixing stuff and tinkering.
Yep. And that's what we had a big realization on the last house that we worked on was if we were just exhausted because, like I said, it was a big house, bigger than the one we had taken on before, and we did it in the same timeline. So it was just, we were hustling and bustling. So I'm there during the day, then doing, hanging out with the kids at night, then doing my work at night. Then he's working all day, then going to the house from 5 to 10, 5 to 11, midnight sometimes every night. Like we were exhausted. And then all weekend, every weekend, like 16-hour days. So, we got to a point where I was on a call with a bunch of other investors and they said, are you just living your dream? You're flipping. You've always wanted to do this. I said, no, I'm exhausted. I don't think I can ever do this again. And it took one person to say, I think you're just doing it the wrong way. I don't think you can DIY an entire house. And first I was like, what is she talking about? She's crazy. And I went to bed and I slept on it and I woke up. I'm like, she is so right. And I owe her an apology for that favor because it's true. But contractors, like you said, are terrible. It is a numbers game. It's like you'll contact 8 of them, maybe hear back from 4 of them, maybe 3 show up, maybe 2 get you a quote. Okay, well, I guess we're going with that one. You have no choices these days and the timelines are wonky. And so it came to the realization of, no, we need to hire out where we can.
Yep.
And my husband's like, I love doing this stuff. I just don't love doing it as a side job. So if this was my full-time job, which knock on wood, hopefully someday that's the goal. He's like, if it would be different if I can do this from 9 to 5 and then relax at night, but we are not there. So we need to do it different for now. And then maybe at some point, things can change. So, but I said, well, tell me the projects you do. He's like, I love doing this stuff. I said, great. Then you will know how to watch over a contractor and know if it's being done right and stay on top of them. Or if you're not doing this right, I'll do it. So I'm going to take your hours away if you don't do it that way. But also, what are like a couple projects you love doing? Let's just keep it free. Yes, you can still do that because you'll build your skill in that area really well. He loves building decks. Great, because there's a huge markup on installing decks. So I would love for you to put decks in. So it's, we're just kind of, learning as we go, but we'll just keep, kind of tweaking our process as we go until maybe it could be full-time one day. That's a different story.
Yeah. When you don't have 2 little kids at home and full-time jobs, like other like jobs that are pulling at you. So I understand that. And then doing the projects that he really, really enjoys or that you both really, really enjoy, then it doesn't feel like work because it's more like an artistic piece or it's an outlet versus like, oh, I just spent all day in an office in his case. And now I got to go and swing a hammer or lead some drywall or whatever.
Yeah. And he'd rather spend his days that way. But again, not when it's 5 to 10 p.m. and all weekend after a stressful job all week. Yeah. So maybe someday.
Kelli, I want to ask you a question on that first deal. So you mentioned that it was a fixer-upper and needed a little bit of love, right? So a lot of people have that fear about how do I buy my first investment property? So I'm just curious how you financed, how did you ended up buying this property? Did you do a conventional loan or did you have to use hard money or?
And when you underwrote it, did you include like margins? Because you just don't know what you don't know when you buy a place, especially a foreclosure. I think that's the one we're talking about.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we'll go back to that foreclosure because that was a bit more of the up in the air. Our first time, no clue what we're doing. So we had actually, with the market changing as it was, we actually went and got a HELOC. We had like a small one, but the market just changed so much that our neighborhood skyrocketed and we went and increased our HELOC. And we had a HELOC of $223,000 to play with, I call it. But my husband's like, we have to pay that back. It's not a gift. But the So we signed the paperwork, and the guy at the bank said, okay, now, if you change your mind in the next few days, you can get out of this within the next 3 days. Let me know. I said, are you kidding? I am going shopping for a house. So this house we ended up purchasing it for $235,000. So we dipped into our savings a little bit, used the HELOC really to finance the majority of it. And then the renovation was also on our own dollars. So this just using our own savings. So we really just used so we were able to make a cash offer, which I think stood out. And then coming up with the estimates, that has been just an ongoing tweaking our spreadsheets, because we have made offers before. We kind of had our spreadsheet going literally. I didn't start with any template, which was just foolish because there's so much out there, but I just started doing it myself, and it's line by line walking through the house. Now I've got it down a little bit faster and really just taking estimates of it was really helpful to do these 2 homes and keep really good track of everything, because funny enough, they both, now that I know the level of demo and renovation and everything that it took, they both came out to that first one, that our raccoon house was $27 a square foot. The second one we did was $28 a square foot. So looking at it, I kind of know it's so helpful just to get a couple under your belt. Even if we had made nothing on it, just the learning experience alone was so much. Now I know if I look at something, it's probably, kind of comparing it to the level of necessity that those had, I can kind of get a good estimate. So I kind of use the rule of make $15 a square foot, $30 a square foot, $50 if it was a full gut renovation, kind of just as a ballpark, but really I go line by line. So when we go walk these properties, I take a quick video as we're walking around so I can go up, down, all around, so I can go back. I'm tracking, every light fixture. We do flooring. What's the square footage? All of that. Can we salvage cabinets? Can we salvage countertops? Paint everywhere. And we got pretty close. I was actually pretty proud of that one. But of course, there's unexpected things that come up. We were there for the inspection. They said they would turn the water on for us. We're standing in the middle of the house. The village calls us and says, we're not turning the water back on. There is a leak somewhere in the main between the street, wherever the hookup is, and the house. One day, the house was literally leaking water. A neighbor called. We shut off the water. Good luck finding it, and we're not turning it back on until you fix it.
Yes.
Then in the inspection, we knew what we could see. There was tons of, it was filthy and drywall repair needed and all that. They went into the attic and said, the attic is just filled with mold. We were like, so we're, Googling. We've never done mold abatement or anything like that in remediation. So we're Googling that. Well, it could be anywhere from $4,000 to $20,000. And we're going, oh my God, this water main, I don't know how much that could be. So those 2 things alone, we were supposed to close a week later. Those 2 things alone allowed us to negotiate $10,000 off. We said, look, this could be $25,000. Let's just shoot. We kind of met them in the middle. We'll take it. And it's just a risk, a gamble we're going to have to take. And it could be $25,000. Well, we need to make cuts somewhere else and we need to do the best we can. So my husband was like, oh God, I'm like, we have to take a gamble. This thing is so underpriced. I think we'll be okay. Or we just need to tweak what we do elsewhere. And it's, replacing, it's painting. It's for now, we need it. We need to just do what we can, but I think it's still worth the risk. Those 2 things, the mold in the attic and the water leak, ended up costing us $400 to repair. After we negotiated $10,000 off, thought it could be $25,000. You just got to reach out to your network. My dad had a friend with a tool. They ended up finding the water leak was very accessible in the laundry room. Someone accidentally shot a nail through a pipe. It busted the pipe. They repaired the pipe with the tool that my dad had. Then it was, I remembered from 6 months prior going on a field trip with my daughter's class, and one of the other dads there owned a mold and water and fire restoration company. And I literally texted him and was like, hey, I found their number in the school directory, shot him a text. I'm like, can you help out? He's like, it'll probably be a couple $1,000s. Came out, assessed. He's like, and in the meantime, we'd gone to a couple birthday parties and kind of met and become friends. And he's like, I'm going to give you the friends and family discount. I'm just going to charge you hourly of what it costs to send my guys over there. They sprayed the whole attic, cleaned it all up, and it was $400.
Wow.
So
that's a great story.
Just
network matters.
Network matters, right?
Network matters completely. And I don't know if we ever get that lucky again. That was, some luck in there. But, it was like, let's take the gamble. It's worth it. If we need to finagle our budget elsewhere, that's fine. But that budget is always just, a working gamble budget kind of thing. So
So, Kelli, you mentioned with that deal that there was a lot of other investors. It was underpriced and you were going against other competition. And, we see that a lot here in the DMV as well. If a home needs a lot of work, there's a lot of investors looking for those opportunities. So you also mentioned that you had an agent that was, very communicative and helped you win in that competitive situation, even with an inspection. You might talk about like how important having an investor friendly agent, because every agent's going to say they're investor friendly, but what certain characteristics that you would say help you with your teammate as an agent?
She does have a couple investment properties herself and says hopefully someday she'll be able to do more. She's very busy lady. She's got a lot going on, but the biggest thing from her, and she's helped us win 2 out of 4 properties this way that we bought in the MLS, following up. It is shocking to me to hear how many agents just don't follow up. I had the opportunity at the second place we bought. When we went to go see it, the garage wasn't opening, and the realtor, we were already under contract, and we're like, can we just get in there and just make, we want to see what we're buying. Their realtor said, I'm going to be in the area. I can open it up for you. So typically I wouldn't meet, their agent, but it was like a convenient, hey, I'm going to be there. I'll let you in. Okay, fine. So I go over there and I talk to her. She said, we had like a handful of offers on this house. The reason you guys got this house is because your realtor was the only one to follow up. No one even texted, called, emailed to like the next day after submitting an offer just to make sure I got it. They didn't say, hey, just want to make sure. No, none of that. She said your realtor called, was on it. She wanted to make sure I got it. She wanted to put faith in us about the buyers. I've worked with them before. They make it to the closing table. They're good people. This is what they're doing. Just kind of, relating to them in a way and following up made us stand out. She didn't call anyone else back. So, and we weren't even the highest offer. Same on the foreclosure that we bought. We weren't the highest offer. She was the one that followed up and called and put assurance in their minds, this will happen. And to the agent, if you have other properties like this, please let me know, because they're always looking to buy and I'll come back and work with you again. So she really made the difference on a few properties for us.
She clearly knows her shit too, because just the fact that she said, oh, and by the way, if you have other properties like this, my client, like most agents don't even think to go that far. So so she's clearly an investor friendly agent. She has her own properties, which is a special skill set of its own. But it does boggle my mind that so many, I won't even say realtors, but people in general, just in this day and age, lack basic like communication skills. Like it's almost like they're afraid to talk to other people. And sometimes just that human touch makes a world of difference. And you're a prime example of just picking up the phone and saying, hello, did you get it? That's great. Let me know if you have questions. Like that would have taken 5 minutes for anyone.
Yeah, I know. As a listing agent,
it makes such a difference.
I on the other side, if somebody calls, even like a lender, if you're working with a lender and they call you to say, hey, this person's, who they say they are, we check assets, we check credit. That just shows like the people side, hey, all right, this makes you, like you said, you weren't the highest offer per se, but if you're working with a team that can get you to the finish line, that's super important.
It's just such a disservice to their clients too. Like when I met that agent and she said the other ones didn't even follow up to make sure I got their offer. So their client, if you put an offer out there and you want to live in this house, like you've fallen in love with it. It's like an emotional connection. And then to know your realtor did not follow up and even make sure they got it, it's just mind blowing to me. So we appreciate
most
her.
agents won't admit to that. Most agents will be like, yep, we just lost. I got the message. I'm so sorry. Let's keep looking. So I have to ask, how did you just get lucky and find this agent, or did you intentionally seek out an interview agent? Like, how did you end up getting this great investor-friendly agent? How'd that come about?
So I had an agent. So I worked at a real estate agency a long time ago. And for the last few purchases that we made for our own primary residence, we used an agent that I'd worked with a long time ago. And she ended up moving out of state. She moved to Tennessee during the pandemic. So that was a sad, sad loss. And I had seen some relatives go through a few purchases where like they didn't have the best agent relationship and it didn't work out and kind of shit hit the fan. And I was like, I'm scared to work with someone that I know already. And because I don't want that to happen, just seeing kind of, if they weren't good and you have to not use them again, stuff like that. So one of my girlfriends she was working for a company and this realtor also owns a restaurant. So she was working, as far as I knew, she was working for a restaurant. And I said, oh, how's it going? You know, we were just chit-chatting. She goes, oh, well, Liz also is a realtor. I said, huh, really? Does she work with, you know, investors? I'm kind of thinking about dabbling into real estate investing. You know, what do you have to say about her? So she kind of gave a testimony to me about her and said, do you want to just get in touch and chat? And I said, sure. No strings attached. I don't know her. If I choose not to work with her, that's fine. We got on the phone. We chatted for about an hour. She also has a kiddo with special needs. I don't know. We just hit it off. And I was really picking her brain to see, in this area, what does the rental market look like? What have you seen? Have you ever invested? We really just hit it off, and she seemed to know what she was doing. And I kind of liked that it was a fresh start, someone that I didn't already know. And we just have been working with her ever since. But really that follow-up has just made such a difference between her and other people. So I have no other reason to shop around for any other realtor right now. She's done wonders for us. So, and I will say, when we get to go to her restaurant, we get treated like VIPs. So that's a nice perk.
There you go.
It's a nice perk.
So
I don't know how she has the time to do it all, but it's a nice perk.
She delegates, I'm sure.
Yes.
Awesome. Super important to have an agent that can work on your side. So I wanted to chat a little. You sold the first foreclosure. You kind of had a proof of concept, and you ended up buying this, I believe it's called the Penguin House, where you might talking about how you found that one. And I know this was a bigger project and a more recent project, you know, how that came about and how you kind of pivoted from your initial plan.
Yeah. So this one just kind of fell in our lap. It wasn't even in a typical town we were looking at. My husband kind of found it, and it was just the town just north of us, actually. And he found it and said, well, look at this train. It wasn't the worst thing we've ever seen, but it was an estate sale. There was a 90-year-old couple living there. The husband had passed a few years before, and then I think maybe she passed, or they were moving her into a facility. But regardless, the relatives, her kiddos were selling it, and nothing had been done to it for years. It was very dirty. And we're like, let's just go see it. Just how it always starts, right? Let's just go see it. And we went to go see it, and I was like, this house has great bones. Like, it's still, the walls are standing. It's very different from the last one. The walls are solid. There's a lot of wallpaper on them. It was just dated, but it had so much potential, and it was a good neighborhood, like a really well-established neighborhood in that town. And it was the worst house on the street. It was just overgrown. It was a 90-year-old lady. She should not be living in a house, that large. And so the landscaping was overgrown, and the house was just needed a good deep clean and some updating. There was a lot of oak and white tile and green countertops, just old, but really good bones. And it had a half-acre lot, which is not very common around here, back to like a beautiful preserve. There was deer in the backyard, and I was lovely. My husband actually wanted to move there. He's like, we should buy this and move here ourselves. And I said, no, I'm never moving again. But no, it was an estate sale. And it had I think the reason I hadn't seen it at first too, it went under contract very quickly. And then clearly that deal fell through. So it had come back on the market a few $1,000s less. And we ended up offering about $15,000 less than it was. We offered a little bit less than that. So what happened was, my favorite part, where we ended up, I think it was listed for $315. I think we offered like $290. They came back a little lower, and we said, my husband's like, I really just want to get it under 300. Like, that would just sit a lot better with my gut, to get it under 300 and to turn it into something great. It could sell for over 400. Like, that just feels like a good buffer here. And so we ended up making two offers as our last kind of counter. We said, okay, we'll do 300,000, or we can do 295, and you can leave all the junk that's still left in there, and we will clean it out for you. And they said, done. We don't want to clean up what's left there. So for me, it was the cost of a dumpster and buying a case of beer and having some friends come over and unload this house. For them, it was like a huge savings. I was just really trying to think, what does someone in an estate sale situation want? They want it to be done with as little work to them as possible. So we saved $5,000 that way, maybe for like $500 the cost of a dumpster and feeding some friends. But
love that. I love that.
That was a good win.
Given two options, right? I know Coach talks about this, and giving the seller the options, because it could be, in your head, it's a win-win. If I get it for 300, great. If I get it for 295, even better. But you never know what's in the mind of the seller. Like, especially like you said, in an estate sale, it's a burden for them to get somebody to come out. Sometimes there's sentimental values of things that are in there, and that can be a whole nother issue. So I love that idea of giving two options. So you went into this one and your intentions were to flip it, correct?
Yep, that was the plan. It was way too big for our buy box. I don't want a rental that's 2,200 square feet, 2 levels, plus a full basement and a half-acre lot. That was just not something that I wanted.
Yeah. And then, as you were going through the renovations, and I know this is super recent because we talked about this a couple months ago at the retreat, the time where you were looking to resell it was not ideal. It's actually the same thing that happened to me with my bird project. We put it on the market Thanksgiving and Christmas time, and we didn't get the bites that we were looking for. So what I love about your story is you ended up pivoting. You and your husband pivoted, right?
Yeah. So we bought it in August, finished up the renovation like mid to late October. So by the time we got it on the market early November, it was in the Midwest too. You're in a cold weather market. It is a terrible time to sell. So lesson learned, we're looking at comps from the summer and the spring and they look great. And then that time of year hits and we were getting traffic. We were getting lowball offers, but we were not getting what we knew it was worth. We literally put blood, sweat, and tears into that place and did it ourselves. So it was even more, disheartening to get these low offers. And we're like, it's just not, I'm not going to give it away. We put so much into this. I'd rather just hold it as a rental if we need to and try to sell it at a different time of year. So it was a couple weeks of lowball offers. And then we ended up a couple weeks of, we did list it for rent too, to see if we could, and we were not even getting good tenants. And finally we settled. Someone who had made a low offer in the start came back and said, we can come up a little bit. And we were kind of, at a point where I guess this is the best we're going to get right now. And that's unfortunate. And we learned, and we were not a fan of their realtor. She was a bully. Honestly, it came down to it. It was like not a good experience. She ended up totally just like took the reins, and her client didn't even know something was going on. I don't want to get into all the weeds, but she was just like a shady bully kind of realtor. And she literally called the deal off for her clients. And I'm like, they don't know this. I actually looked them up on Facebook, sent a message to the wife, and I said, by the way, we did not do this. This is not our doing. This is your realtor. If you still want to work it out, we're happy to, but we didn't do that. And she had no idea. She wrote back and said, we had no idea. We didn't know what was going on. So it's just like, it didn't feel good. So it was about $7,000 lower than the low end we wanted to accept. Not the end of the world. We're still making money, just not as much as we wanted. Then this like shady business was going on. The realtor she was bully. And we actually got on a conference call with our realtor and her broker. And because we're like, what do we do? And she's like, this woman's a bully. We've worked with her before. She's terrible. We're on your side. You're not wrong. Stick to your guns. It doesn't feel good, but it was a whole dramatic thing. And so it just didn't feel good. And all of a sudden, so then they had the inspection. We told them, knowing that you're making this lower than we'd like offer, don't ask for anything in the inspection. Yeah. Like we are saying no to everything.
Yeah.
And they came back and asked for about $2,500 worth of things in the inspection. And we were like, these are not even essential. This is crazy. So we had to like the end of the next day to basically decide what we were going to do. And in the meantime, a few random requests rolled in from realtor.com with some possible tenants. And I reached out. My husband's like, let's just Hail Mary in this thing. Let's just see if we can find a tenant and get out of this. That would feel better to me at this point because I hate these people. Is kind of what I said. And not so much the buyers, but the realtor was just great. It was not to feel like a good experience. So I reached out to one of them and two of them, and I said, "Are you still interested?" The one was like, "Let me talk to my wife and get back. Yes, I'll see what we can do." The other one was like, "Yes, I know exactly the property you're talking about. I saw the pictures. I fell in love. I want to live at that property." This sounds a little bit red flaggy, but it was like, we can move quick and we can pay in full, whatever you need, which I know, giant red flags, but she had a story that backed it all up. It was, they were in another area that they didn't love. The area just wasn't as great as they thought it was. There was like drunk driver situations and like, they were hearing like gunshots at night. She's like, we just don't feel safe. Like we picked this place based on convenience on a map, and it's not great. And her mom had passed away. She had some inheritance to work with. She's like, we are moving out of here no matter what it takes. And we're going to pay off our lease. We want somewhere better. We can afford better. We want a good neighborhood for our kids and our family and all that. So I said, can you get here tomorrow? Came for a tour. it was like the day we could get out of the contract. And we said, sorry, your realtor is terrible. We're going to move forward. We're not selling it anymore. And they asked for things in the inspection. We're just like, we're done with this contract. We are going to rent it out and we'll try to sell it at a better time of year. So they have been lovely tenants. We like have become friends with them. They take really good care of the house. I had to stop by there yesterday for something. Literally, she opened the front door and was, oh, I need to vacuum that cobweb. Like, she's the best tenant ever. So we're just happy that it worked out that way. And we're like, you know what, we'll just try to sell it at a better time in the future. So
yeah, and it all happens for a reason, right, Kelli? And,
yes.
And this one, I believe you did like a lease to own. So are they
are talking about purchasing it. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So not quite the same like where they signed on at first, but it was, hey, there is the potential that we might be able to buy this. We have some inheritance. The rest of it's kind of coming in over the summer. And after that, we really want to decide. And I kind of pitched it as, well, that's great because who gets a trial run of their house and neighborhood before they get to purchase it? I mean, you get to see if you like the neighbors, you like the lot, you like the house. And we have to handle anything that comes up between now and then. So, I mean, it's just kind of a win-win for everyone. So I'm hoping it works out. They're hoping for like later this year. And I said, well, if we could keep it more than a year, the tax implication would be a lot better for us. So that would be August. So we're starting the conversations now. They did say like, we are very interested. There's a few things we're trying to work out. And I was like, great. If you can work with me on the timeline, I will be happy to work it out with you. And that would just be a nice feel good, get them in a house that they love and everything too. It just feels so much better than the prior transaction it could have been. So
it's great having great tenants. It was funny you mentioned about like that timeline. They were kind of rushed. That was my first tenants for just like that. And I had no idea about red flags or anything like that, but they become one of our best tenants there. I actually just got a message from them yesterday. Hey, do you mind if we plant some flowers in the front? Of course. So, yes, it could be a red flag, obviously, but you never know. And it happens for a reason, right? You end up with some great tenants. You end up holding on to the property and, somebody that actually cares for the properties.
Yep. They love it. We knew they loved it. Like I said, on the phone, she said, hon, it's that house in Antioch I told you about. And I was like, okay, this is a good sign.
Good sign.
And then it was a very quick, like I said, they just wanted to get out of where they were and they were willing to pay it off. And she had some funds to do so. And to feel safe in a neighborhood in a house that she's excited about is awesome. And again, I see all these memes now about like red flags, like I can move in and I can pay in full. And I'm like, that literally is what happened. So she had taken some time off because of her mom being sick and passing and all that. She had great credit, but no job. He had decent credit and a job. So it was kind of like on paper, they were a little bit of a question mark. And she acknowledged that. She told me the full story of why they looked like that, what happened, and everything checked out. So to me, if you tell me your story and you're honest and it checks out, that's a lot better to me than not telling me or you're dishonest or I catch you in some silly lie. And she's like, because I know we're a little bit questionable, I'm happy to pay in full for like the first 6 months. I said, great. I will take that check right to the bank. Thank you very much. They moved in like a couple days later. And the day I was like, oh, I really hope this isn't a giant red flag mistake. But the day we moved them in, I was like, okay, are we walking out together or, take the keys and run? You have moving to do? She goes, oh no, I have furniture being delivered here in an hour. I ordered specifically new dining room set just to fit in that dining room and new couches. And I'm like, oh, you love this house. Like you are not going anywhere. That's fantastic. So it worked out. And like I said, they're lovely people too. So it just felt a lot better going forward with them and we'll figure out the sale later. But it does sound like they're interested. So I'm hoping we can work that out with them and it'll just be a nice little cherry on top.
Love it.
It's awesome that you were able to pivot. Like that's what, I guess life in general is about pivoting, but real estate even more so. And people will freeze up or they'll sell it for lower because they just want to be done with it. So I assume the mortgage covers any expenses affiliated with the house at this point. So you're not coming out of pocket to pay it. So it's not like you're in the red with this house by renting it.
Right. Right. And I figured if we can carry it beyond that 1 year threshold, our taxes will be so much lower. We'll save like at least $11,000, $12,000 just there alone if we can get it there. So that was a win. And yeah, they more than cover it and they're very handy. They do the lawn themselves. They're planting things. And so, it feels a lot better. But yeah, the pivot thing, I had a wholesaler reach out the other day and he said, oh, I have this property. And I looked at it. It was like 500 square feet. It could be a flip. But I said, I just can't because I need to be able to pivot. So I don't know how well that would rent. So if a flip to me doesn't sell, I need to know that I could also rent it out and carry it. And I don't know how that would do. So I'm going to pass. So just like thinking that way when you buy it, it might not work out as you plan. I don't plan to put anything else on the market in October, November, December ever again. That was a big lesson learned. But just the ability to pivot is important.
Having a plan B is always important. And because you never know when one of these great deals are going to fall in your lap. So if you have the plan B, or at least a plan A.1, A.2, then you know, like, we'll get it, we'll flip it, we can rent it, and then we can sell it or fix it and then flip it later, because you never know either when someone's going to call you up with a fantastic deal. And if it happens to land in the October timeframe, you're not going to walk away, or you might, but
yeah, maybe we could take a little longer in renovating it and get it there. But that was a lesson learned. That time of year is rough anywhere that it's cold, especially. And just the holidays too. You would be closing at the holidays, and who wants to move, then? So I feel like a lot of people are just, we'll get through the holiday. We don't love our house, or we would need bigger or whatever. But I want to decorate for Christmas. I want a house. I don't want to think about moving until after the holidays. So.
You're preaching to the choir, Kelli.
So I did not know until I learned the hard way.
Me neither. But I wanted to kind of circle back. So I know you leveraged your community when you were talking about doing some rehabs and DIY and things like that. But, I know we are all part of the community, and I know that that's helped you grow a lot as an investor yourself. So I guess my question is, how important is it to kind of network with other investors that to help you grow in your rental business?
Mm-hmm. So important. I remember if anyone doesn't know, we are all part of Coach Carson's RPM community. I'm sure you guys say it all the time, but I also work for Coach Carson behind the scenes. I've been doing graphic design and social media and just background things for a couple years. And literally, I remember a couple years ago, he was like, I'm thinking of starting this community. And it was literally just this little dream. Then now it's turned into what it is. And I feel so fortunate I get to be part of it. And even if he fired me tomorrow, I would still be part of RPM for years to come. Hopefully that doesn't happen. But I'm just like learning every day. Any nugget that anyone can share, even if they don't even think they're sharing something, it's just their story. It's not even trying to be a lesson. I learned so much from that, just seeing what other people are doing. We're all in the same boat. We're going through the same things. And just, I think really, Coach always says it, and you don't believe it till it really sinks in, but like knowing all the tools in your toolbox and then having options, that's how you can pivot, or you have other options. There's not just one way of doing something. Here, learn about what everyone else is doing and all these other methods just by hearing their stories, and you have options going forward and just can creatively think. And, pivot is the big, I just keep thinking of that Friends, pivot. That's the story of life, right? You got to be able to pivot, but just having all those tools in your toolbox and knowing what options you have is so important. And networking, I learned so much from everyone. I love everyone in the group. They're so like willing to give their time. And it's not like other industries that are so competitive. Like, well, I learned this, but I'm not going to tell you anything. It's like, we're not competing, like no one's in each other's backyard competing for the same deals. Why not share what you're learning in your neck of the woods, and someone else can use that? Everyone's just so giving with their time and information. So very thankful to be in the group. And even, what you guys and other people share on social media, everything is just like my whole algorithm now is all real estate investing. And I just love that I can soak it in all day, every day. And I don't know, it gives me confidence. Like, I feel like I'm studying this stuff, even if it's a silly meme about red flags. It's a real learning thing that you're picking up on. So it's giving me confidence as an investor. So now that we're getting to the point now where we need to go out and partner or lend with other people. We've been kind of self-sufficient so far using our HELOC and just kind of recycling that. We are to the point now where we're reaching out, and I can confidently say, like, I study real estate all day, every day. Like, I know so much about it. And then when you like find yourself explaining it to other people outside of that world, they're like, wow, you really know what you're talking about. Yeah, I'm just soaking it in all day, every day. It's wild. Right. And it's not a textbook and it's not school. It's just real life learning and jumping in and doing it and hearing other people's stories. So It's super valuable. I appreciate everything you guys do and share.
Now and being in rooms with people that are doing what you want to be doing. That's one of the main reasons why I joined, and we could talk for this about a whole another hour, but I know we are running close on time. So I wanted to hit you with a few final questions. And I know you and your husband, actually, this wasn't on the list of questions that I had.
Oh, no. Guys, you gave me a list. You got to stick to the list.
I'm curious because Anna and Brian invest together. You and your husband, Zach, invest together. I'm just curious to, how that experience is. A lot of people have a spouse or a partner that's not really involved. But
you
guys
and Jessica.
are both. Yeah, exactly. But you guys are very involved. So I'm just curious how it is to, being partners in life, but also partners in business.
Oh, thank God this is a question I can answer. So it was funny because a few years ago, I had always thought about real estate investing. Like I said, since I worked at a real estate office, my mom was a realtor. I'm obsessed with HGTV. I just always thought about it. I don't know if he had quite thought about it, but we were kind of but he's handy, right? And we've learned all these skills with our own home. And I was at a point, I became a stay-at-home mom after my kiddos were born. I didn't love my job. There was no upward mobility. It was like, let's just try this for a while, see what happens. We'll figure it out later. And we were a single income household. I was doing a little bit of graphic design, side work here and there, but I'm not paying the bills by any means. I was more or less, a stay-at-home mom. And I'm like, I need to do something. I need to feel like I'm contributing. And we got to a little bit of a crossroads because, funny enough, long story short, we invented a tool in the DIY space and we're about to go down the patent route for that. And that was cool. This will be my job. I'm going to run this. And, he helped develop it, worked with the client. We had branding. We were kind of ready to go. And for a patent, you have to invest $15,000 at least just to get that ball rolling. And it might not even succeed. You don't know. And I know from a marketing background what that's going to cost to introduce a new tool to the entire world. I mean, you're talking displays at Home Depot. You're talking going to all these trade shows. That's, travel and just hustling, right? And I'm like, in the back of my mind, I'm like, I'm proud of this product. I believe in it. I don't know if I can sink all my eggs into one basket and like with our entire life savings and not know that I'll ever get anything back. So I had always, in the back of my mind was real estate investing. I started at that same time listening to podcasts, reading some books, and just like kind of studying the concept. And I pitched it to my husband. I said, look, we're about to invest this. I have kind of a different idea. I think we need to have some other form of income before we spend our life savings on this. Have you ever thought about real estate investing? I think this could be perfect for us. One, we love DIY. You're handy. He has a financial background. You can do all the bookkeeping and be the handy guy. I'm like customer service, marketing. I could do the photos. I could sell the places. I think this would be, and I get my DIY itch fixed by being able to improve these homes, make them look good without spending that all on our own home. And I really think this could be an amazing thing for us. And the best part about it is, let's say we buy a place and decide that this isn't what we want to do. We don't like it for whatever reason. At least we could sell the property and get some money back. If we go down the road of this patent and a new product, we could literally sink our entire life savings and get nothing to show for it. So that just makes me really nervous. So I kind of pitched it to him as this is like the perfect thing for us. And he was like, I think you're right. Let's start looking. And so I was like, well, by the way, I've been listening to podcasts and books for 4 months now. Let me tell you what I've learned. And so working together has been great. We really have like a good complementary skill set. Sometimes we want to kill each other, especially with design. I said this and you said that. With, the construction part of it, you get somewhere and you're like, no, you hung that backwards or whatever it may be. But for the most part, it's a really good relationship. He gets it. He's a commercial lender. So in terms of like time value of money and appreciation and the financing piece of it, he's really strong with that. So usually I'll come to him with, hey, I heard about this thing, I don't know, some kind of creative financing, right? I've heard of this. And he's like, oh yeah, I know all about that. Let me explain it to you. And then, but other things, I'm like, hey, I've heard of other investors doing this. Have you thought about that? No, I haven't. So we really are like trying to study together, build our toolbox together. But in terms of like, I'm terrible with bookkeeping. He's great at it. He's our lead handyman. I'm still pretty good at something like demo and painting and cleaning and all that. But it's a good working relationship. We both believe in it and just hope we can do it more full time at some point. Nice. He could do all that from 9 to 5 instead of after hours.
Yeah, you're a good team. You complement one another. You've been in business for quite some time now in real estate. What is some advice that you would give yourself based off what you know now?
Oh, like going back to the beginning?
In your journey.
Or anyone new or myself. A few people have told me this, and it took a while to let it sink in and believe in it, but I think you kind of just have to be fearless, or fake it till you make it. That's kind of one of my favorite phrases too. Just if there's something you're interested in, you do some research, don't be scared to jump in. I know so many people get stuck in the analysis paralysis and they're just terrified. And to me, it's what's the worst that could happen? You could sell the place. If a remodel goes south, you hire someone else or you have to fix it. Sure. But at the end of the day, it still has some value left. It's not like you'll get nothing out of it. So I don't know. I'm just jump in and do it. Be fearless, be confident. That's something new that I'm working on. Just even saying I am a real estate investor. I'm just, that's it. It's not just this little side thing.
Yeah.
I mean, that's my career. That's what I do. So now as we're kind of pitching private money lenders and partners, I'm I'm a real estate investor. This is, I'm confident in it. I'm owning it. I'm this is what I'm doing. Just jumping in and owning that. So I think it was a little fake it till you make it. And now I'm feeling it, but I don't know. That's just my,
I love it.
Keep being fearless. What's the worst that could happen?
Yeah. Yeah. So Anna and I are big avid readers, and I'm not sure if you are, but did you have any books that you would recommend to our audience? They don't have to be real estate related, but any that come off the top of your head?
Okay. You guys know I'm biased on the first few, but of course, Chad Carson's books. I really did. It was the first real estate book I read was Retire Early with Real Estate. I started listening to Bigger Pockets and scouring other podcasts. I heard him very early on when I started listening, and I felt like such a sucker. I come from a marketing background. I should know that they're trying to pitch me something. And I was so mad at myself for buying a book that someone told me about on a podcast. But we've come a long way. So I heard him read Retire Early with Real Estate, and that really I was I can do this. I love Building Wealth One House at a Time, John Schaub's book. Just so simple, to the point. I've read a few that are either too complex or too fluffy. I don't know. It's there's got to be a good middle balance. What else? And then of course, The Small and Mighty Real Estate Investor. That changed a lot for me. I'm trying to be too biased, but I just am. Outside of that, I love thrillers. So Anna, if you like reading other things, I love The Silent Patient, The Perfect Marriage, those kind of books.
Okay.
And Nico, I have on my list one book from you, Who Not How. I have to read that one soon.
Yes.
You and Aaron have told me about that book, and I have to read it soon.
It'll be perfect for you, especially as a DIYer. Yes. It's all about delegating. So
yep.
I also like The Silent Patient. It's not just for women. Yeah. I like thrillers as well. So
okay.
I read that one. Awesome. Well, this has been a ton of fun, Kelli. And our last question we always ask our guests is how can Anna and our audience, help you in your business and your future endeavors?
Oh, I don't just keep sharing everything you guys share. I learned so much just from your stories. Sorry, my loud computer here. No, I just learned so much from your stories and sharing. It's even when you don't think you're sharing a lesson, it just is. It all sinks in. And I'm this is what other people are doing. We have the same struggles or the same issues. And good to know contractor issues aren't just a thing in my area. That's going on everywhere. And, just helps to hear all those stories. But no, I appreciate everything you guys do. And I love your podcast. And I love all the people you've had on recently. I keep binging it when I'm driving places. And I appreciate what you guys do.
Awesome, Kelli. Thank you. That makes me happy. We never know who's listening, and we appreciate the feedback. So that is going to do it for another episode. Oh, before we go, Kelli, where can people reach out to you if they have any questions, any DIY tips and tricks? Where can they reach out to you?
Yeah, I'm mostly on Instagram. So it's the DIY Duo. There's some dots in there. So there's some other names were taken, but it's the.d.i.y.duo. So the DIY Duo. But I just have fun on there. As we're doing renovations, I like polling my audience for ideas and just funny reels about renovations and kind of share what we're doing with our real estate investing. So it's all fun, but come join if you want to laugh at some house projects with me. Laugh through them with me.
Or the oddity of the day.
Yes, it's my new favorite. As I'm looking at all these homes, I just cannot believe the way some people live or some decisions that they make. So I just have to share the funny ones that I find, oddities in homes.
Yeah, it's a very fun follow. Definitely reach out to Kelli and Zach. And we learned a ton on this episode. And thank you again, Kelli. If you found any value, please like, share, subscribe to our channel. If you have any topics you want Anna and I to cover, please reach out to me. You can reach out to me at ngarcia official on all social platforms. And you can reach out to Anna at
I'm Anna Bylik _ realtor on Instagram and Anna Bylik everywhere else. And I'm voting for Kelli to come back because I was so good this episode, but I have so many questions. Like, what's the tool? I want to know how you met Chad. Like, but I'll stop there. But you have to come back because I was like, okay, I can't keep asking questions.
For part 2.
Who doesn't love a good 90-minute podcast?
Till the next one, guys. Bye-bye.
Thank you, guys.